Test match rugby is back this weekend, folks, with the Springboks taking on Wales from Twickenham. It's the world champion Boks up against a kind of underperforming Welsh side who didn't do all that well in the Six Nations. Both sides have got a few surprises in terms of the selection. Remember, this game is being played outside the international test window, so there's a number of players unavailable. Premiership-based players for both sides, the Bulls players for South Africa, top 14 players and whatnot. And this game is just one of many very important games this weekend. The Super Rugby finals being played this weekend, the URC finals this weekend, the Japanese are taking on England, the Barbars are taking on Fiji, the top 14 quarter semi-finals are still going. So there is an absolute smorgasbord of rugby this weekend. It is a certainly good time to be a fan. But we'll go through the squads for this game, some recent history, some stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how things are going to go. For the South Africans, first game since the World Cup, like I mentioned, so it is a changed lineup, and as I mentioned, some guys unavailable, some guys injured, but it's great to see Malcolm Marx back. Remember, he didn't last the course of the World Cup with injury, but he is back and he is starting. That is certainly going to be a welcome bit of news for South African fans. Oxenche is up from the bench, where he played in that last game with the World Cup, and he was certainly, doing his reputation the world of good at that last World Cup with his demolition kind of scrummaging, and him Vincent Koch as well. That's a heck of a front row. Despite the fact that it's an all-change front row from the World Cup front row, that's still one of the best front rows in world rugby. Ebenezer and Franco Mossad, that's the same second row pairing as that World Cup final, and I read a stat from Russ Petty, I think it was, on Twitter, saying that Ebenezer has more caps himself than the entire Welsh pack, which is a kind of statement in itself, perhaps, where these teams are at. Quokka Smith is getting a rare start. The number 6 jersey, remember, he's been something of a kind of super sub specialist in recent times. Pieter-Steph is going to captain the side from number 7, and Ivan Rus is going to get a crack at number 8. Remember, he's been having a pretty impressive URC season in terms of, I think he's the top forward in the URC for defenders beaten. He has a heap of carries, and with Cameron Hanekom playing pretty well for the Bulls, he could certainly use a good shift at number 8 just to fight off that competition that there will be for that number 8 jersey. Backs-wise, Faf de Klerk and Jordan Hendrickse is a new 19 combo. Faf is obviously kind of Mr. Consistent for the Boks in recent years, but Jordan Hendrickse will get his first ever test cap, so big congratulations to him. The 22-year-old Lions man's been, he's been a solid player. Like, if you look at his numbers, he's got a decent tackling rate for a 10. He kicks decently with his goals. He'd like to up it a little bit. He's a decent ball carrier, playmaker, so yeah, it'd be a good test for him to see if he can kind of raise his game to the next level. And Andre Esterhuizen gets a crack at 12. Like, Damon Delander is in the squad on the bench, but it's great to see big Andre, who certainly loves a big carry, getting a go at number 12. Jesse Kriel at 13 had maybe one of his career best years for the Springboks last year. So every kind of combination you look at is like a mix of the guys who played in the World Cup and some guys who were maybe not appearing in the final, or some new guys like Faf alongside Jordan, Andre alongside Jesse, like guys who were in and guys who were out. Maybe they were in the squad, maybe they weren't starting. So yeah, you can see what Rusty is doing here. And then the back three, Mapimpi back on the left wing, Edwill van der Merwe is going to get his debut on the right wing, and then Fassi is back at fullback. So Fassi's had a taste of test match rugby before, but not a heck of a lot. There's always been questions about his ability to defend, but there's no doubting his ability in attack. I think he's the top guy for run meters in the URC, playing for a team that didn't do that well in the Sharks. Edwill van der Merwe is an interesting case as well. He's been an absolute fleet-footed stepper, breaker of tackles, breaker of ankles, it feels like. But at 28, it's an interesting call to give him his debut. Like, in New Zealand, by the time guys are getting to 28, they're kind of cast out from the All Blacks if they're in the outside backs, but this is going to be his first game, and on form, it's good to see him kind of getting that reward as well. Bench-wise, in Bonambi, Mkunu and Malherbe will be the front row replacements. Mkunu has had a bit of game time in the past in the test arena, but not a heck of a lot, so good to see him back in the side, and it's a rare bench appearance for Frans Malherbe. He has tended to be mainly always the starting guy. Other forwards are Morat and Ben Jason Dixon. Ben Jason Dixon, one of the guys who's going to get his test match debut, so a big congratulations to him as well. He's been a tackling machine and turnover merchant as well in the URC. Grant Williams, the speedster, is the halfback replacement. Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu is the other guy who'll be getting his debut if he comes on. I guess he covers the midfield fullback and covers 10 as well in a pinch, and then Damon Delende in the number 23 jersey. So yeah, it's a changed Springbok lineup from the World Cup final. As I mentioned, there's the selection limitations, but it is, I feel like, a nice blend of experience and kind of inexperience, like the experience in the youth. I mean, not always youth, like Van der Merwe's 28, like I mentioned, not that young in rugby terms, but inexperienced in terms of not having any test caps, but got experienced guys all around him. For Wales, it's certainly less experienced. Like, they are way down on the caps, and they've also, like, compared to their last game that they played in the Six Nations, made kind of wholesale changes. Potentially the biggest news is Jack Morgan is out of the entire June-July period with a hamstring injury, which is really unfortunate because we have seen him playing the house down for Wales. He's certainly been a bright spot in what's been not the best kind of international period for Wales in recent times. They're also without Adam Baird. And remember the Premiership guys like Tommy Reffel and Dafford Jenkins. These guys aren't available. Will Rollins and Ryan Elias, I believe, are kind of just taking breaks from international rugby at the minute. Kind of can't blame them, but it's a chance for some other guys to step up. Gareth Thomas, Dewi Lake, and Henry Thomas is the front row. So Dewi Lake, who missed out on the Six Nations, is back. So that is certainly a bit of good news. And the two Thomases will prop the scrum. Matthew Screech and Ben Carter is a kind of unfamiliar locking duo. Matthew Screech has played Test rugby before once, I think a few years ago, but he's also not exactly a youngster at 31. Plumtree, Botham, and Wainwright is the back row. So Wainwright's the kind of only consistent guy in terms of the side that played in their last Six Nations game. Botham kind of fills those shoes of Reffel and Jack Morgan, who've been kind of a lock on that number 7 jersey in recent times. He's a late call up to the squad, but he's certainly a high work rate guy. And then Taine Plumtree's also had a taste of Test match rugby before. He'll be looking to kind of keep a cool head and keep a hang on the ball, because I seem to remember there was one test where he was just seemingly a little bit too eager and maybe dropped a bit of ball, but he's a talented player, and we'll see what he can do up against the likes of a Pieter-Steph Dutoy, who's at the other end of the experience scale. There's a new halfback in Ellis Bevan. The Cardiff number 9 is going to be getting his test debut against the Springboks, so kind of into the deep end for him. We thought maybe you start Gareth Davies, who's on the bench, and kind of ease Bevan into it, but nope, it's straight into the deep end for him. Good all-round 9, puts a few box kicks in. He'll probably be trying to get his team some territory against the Boks, because you don't want to be playing in your own half. And then Sam Costelow has been the 10 for Wales in that Six Nations campaign, and he will continue on there. Mason Grady and Owen Watkin. That's the midfield. Grady's a bit of a big unit, so we'll see what he can do up against the big unit that is Esterhazen. Rio Dyer is a bit of a consistency one on the left wing. Liam Williams is back from Japan on the right wing. Gat said he hasn't had a lot of game time over in Japan, but he's still keen to put his hand up for Wales, so he is one of the more experienced guys in this Welsh squad, which lacks a few caps. And then Cam Winnett there at fullback was solid without being spectacular for Wales in the Six Nations. Like, he wasn't getting talked about a lot, but he was doing all his core roles really well. He was getting the run meter, he was kicking the ball from the back. He'll probably get a bit of pressure on him with the high balls. He's not the biggest fullback, but you've got Liam Williams there as well, who can play fullback, plays a lot of fullback. So between the two of them, you'd think they'll be fielding any high balls that the Springboks send their way. Bench-wise, Evan Lloyd, Kemsley, Mathias, and Keiron Assiratti. That's the front row replacement. So pretty steady from the Six Nations with Assiratti. He didn't get a game in that final game of the Six Nations, so he's kind of an addition to the squad. James Ratti will cover lock, and he's also making his test debut if he comes on, so congratulations to him. Mackenzie Martin is the loose forward replacement, and they're 3 back replacements, though no temptation from either side to go 6-2 split. Gareth Davis, Eddie James, and Jacob Beetham, so another 2 debutants to come off the bench, and Eddie James, the Scarlets 12, and then Jacob Beetham, the Cardiff fullback. So yes, it is a young, inexperienced Welsh squad. The Springboks have also got some debutants, but are significantly more experienced than Wales. Recent history between the sides has largely been South Africa's way. 4 of the last 5 games going for South Africa. Remember, there was that famous victory by the Welsh in that second test at Bloemfontein, where they won 13 points to 12. Was it their first ever win down in South Africa? I feel like it was. But then they were kind of blown away 30 points to 14 in the next game. And then the most recent game was a Rugby World Cup warm-up game, which was 52 points to 16. Malcolm Marx scored in that one. Pieter-Steph Toy scored in that one. Kriel scored in that one. So, Yeah, they had a bit of a riot act ran at them, the Welsh, in that one. So yeah, the average score across the last 5 is 30 points to 18, which is pretty comfortable for South Africa. And the bookies have kind of got things going a similar way this weekend. They are saying South Africa by a whopping 19 points. The Rugby Forecast algorithm goes even further, saying South Africa by 23. It is on Twickenham, like I mentioned, in London. So I guess technically a neutral venue, but there's certainly a shorter trip from Wales to London than from South Africa. But there'll certainly be a few expat South Africans there in London as well. It is an afternoon kickoff. I'm still debating how to watch all these games because I think it's a 1 a.m. kickoff for me. Then the URC final is a 4 a.m. kickoff, so I don't think I can do the full stretch throughout the night. I have to watch one of them delayed. Do I watch the test match first and then avoid spoilers for the URC final? Or do I sleep, get up for the URC final, and then risk being spoiled for the test match result? Watch the test delayed. You guys let me know what you reckon I should do. If you're in the States and you want to watch this game, you want to watch the Super Rugby final, the URC final, all those games are on Flow Rugby. I'll put a link down in the description. Flow is a affiliate of the channel. But yeah, Springboks up against Wales on paper. It's going to be a pretty lopsided one with a much more experienced number 1 in the world Springbok side playing the kind of struggling at the moment number 10 Welsh side. It would certainly be the absolute feel-good of feel-good wins if Wales can get a victory. But I feel like being competitive against the side is probably enough for the Boks. If they don't win it, I feel like they'll be disappointed. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.